Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're about to embark on a really fascinating journey where we'll decode the massive, frankly intricate legal frameworks that organize the Philippine police and its allied bureaus. If you've ever found yourself wondering how a nationwide force of hundreds of thousands of people is actually structured, recruited, and, kept in check, well, you're definitely in the right place. We're going to take these really complex bureaucratic laws and break them all down, piece by piece, so you can see the true anatomy of a modern law enforcement machine.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. First, the DLRG command structure. Second, inside the National Police. Third, recruitment, ranks, and promotion. Fourth, keeping the force in check. And finally, number 5, the fire and jail bureaus.
To really get how the system works today, we've got to look at the legal bedrock it stands on. It basically comes down to 3 foundational laws that totally transformed the country's law enforcement landscape over a span of about 14 years. It kicked off in 1990 with the DLIG Act, was heavily reformed to become much more community-oriented in 1998, and then saw the strict professionalization of the fire and jail bureaus in 2004. Everything we're diving into today flows directly from those specific legislative milestones.
All right, Section 1. The DILG command structure, also known as the umbrella organization.
The DILG is literally the beating heart of this entire system. Now, that 1990 law didn't just casually rename a department. It engineered a monumental legal shift. It legally mandated that the DILG automatically take over the primary role of preserving internal security from the armed forces of the Philippines. So why does that matter? Because it formally shifted the responsibility for internal peace and order away from a military framework and into a strictly civilian one. It fundamentally entirely changed the relationship between the state's armed enforcers and the everyday citizens they protect.
Just think about the sheer scope of the DILG's umbrella for a second. It houses the Philippine National Police, sure, but it also covers the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. And crucially, it includes the National Police Commission, or NAPOLCOM, which acts as the main administrative and oversight body alongside the Public Safety College for training. It's this massive, deeply interconnected ecosystem of public safety.
Moving right along to Section 2. Inside the National Police. Let's demystify the PNP.
1 to 500. That right there is the legally mandated target police-to-population ratio nationwide. Just imagine the absolute scale required to maintain public safety across thousands of islands, cities, and municipalities. The law states we should ideally have 1 police officer for every 500 citizens, though, of course, highly urban areas might need an even denser presence than that. This ratio is basically the engine driving the organization's massive recruitment and deployment strategies. This perfectly captures that transition to civilian life we were just talking about. By comparing these terms, you can literally see how the force shifted its identity. They used to use traditional military ranks, right? Like private or first lieutenant. But the modern law amended those entirely to reflect a civilian law enforcement nature, giving us titles like police patrolman or police lieutenant. It's way more than just a quick change in vocabulary. It's a constant, structural reminder that they are a community-oriented police force, not a military army.
Now, what's super fascinating here is how these ranks are actually distributed. Nearly 70% of the entire National Police Force falls right into the entry-level and junior non-commissioned ranks, meaning everyone from Police Officer 1 up to Senior Police Officer 1. The vast majority of the force is made up of frontline officers doing the actual groundwork. They're out there patrolling the streets, responding to local calls, and interacting with the community every single day. The operational pyramid is incredibly wide at its base.
Okay, Section 3. Recruitment, ranks, and promotion. Let's talk about the journey of a cop.
So here is the life cycle of a recruit, and man, it is a strenuous, year-long crucible. You absolutely cannot just apply and get a badge. First up, you have to meet strict age, height, weight, and degree requirements. Check those boxes? Great. Then come the eligibility exams and physical tests. Pass those, and you're facing 6 grueling months of basic recruit training, followed immediately by another 6 months of actual field training, doing patrol, traffic, and investigation. It is only after surviving that full year that you finally achieve regular member status.
But here's the kicker. Climbing up to leadership isn't just about logging time in the service. The law actually mandates continuous academic upgrading. To become a provincial director, for instance, a master's degree in a relevant field, think public administration, criminology, or national security, is an absolute legal requirement, no exceptions.
The whole system is engineered to force its upper management to constantly modernize their education.
And this continuous education plays directly into what's known as the attrition system. The law strictly enforces maximum tenures for leadership positions. The chief of the PNP, they can only serve a maximum of 4 years. Regional directors max out at 6 years, and provincial directors hit the ceiling at 9 years. This basically ensures that no single individual can just hold on to a seat of power indefinitely. It forces fresh leadership up to the top and creates constant upward mobility for the younger ranks waiting below.
But hitting your tenure limit isn't the only way to be forced out. The PNP has some pretty ruthless up or out rules. If you're relieved of duty and not reassigned for 2 years, you're separated from the service. If you are promoted for 10 continuous years, you're out. Poor performance over consecutive rating periods? Yeah, you're out. This structure holds officers highly accountable for their own career development. You literally cannot just coast in this organization. You've got to perform and progress.
Which brings us to Section 4, keeping the force in check, accountability and oversight. It's the classic question of literally any society, right? Who polices the police? To answer this, the law set up dual systems of oversight, one looking from the inside out and one looking from the outside in. Let's contrast these two distinct pillars. First up, we have the Internal Affairs Service, or IAS. This is the internal, procedural safety net. They do proactive audits and legally must automatically investigate any incident where a police officer discharges a firearm or where someone is injured in police custody. Then, on the flip side, we have the People's Law Enforcement Board, or PLEB. This is your community-driven civilian oversight. Located in every single municipality, the PLEB is the central receiving entity for any citizen who wants to file a complaint against an officer.
But oversight isn't just about after-the-fact investigations. It's also heavily tied to daily operations. The law automatically deputizes local government executives, like your local mayor, to have direct, day-to-day operational influence over the police in their cities. Mayors legally have operational supervision and control. They even have the authority to choose their local chief of police from a list of 5 nominees, and they direct where units are deployed for crime prevention. So while the police force is national, their daily deployment is heavily guided by local elected civilians.
I definitely want to highlight this specific legal requirement because it's so important. The law structurally guarantees resources for dealing with crimes against chastity, sexual harassment, and abuse by mandating women's desks in all police stations across the entire country. And to actually staff these desks, the PNP is legally required to reserve at least 10% of its annual recruitment, training, and education quota exclusively for women. This ensures the force always has the specialized personnel required to handle these incredibly sensitive cases. Finally, Section 5, Fire and Jail Bureaus. The Allied Forces. Look, the police usually get all the spotlight, sure, but that 2004 law made absolutely certain that the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology were not left behind. The law mandated that these bureaus adopt the exact same rigorous educational and structural standards as the national police. They use parallel uniforms ranks, they have the same strict physical and degree requirements just to enter, and just like the police, their top brass, like the chief of the Fire Bureau, must hold a master's degree or be a member of the Philippine Bar. It's total professionalization across the board.
Wow, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, looking at the very DNA of these organizations. So I want to leave you with this final thought. How does this intricate web of rules, rank structures, educational requirements, and civilian oversight actually shape the daily peace and order of your own community? The next time you see a local patrolman, a fire marshal, or even a local mayor directing public safety, you now know the massive, complex legal machinery operating just beneath the surface to make it all happen. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the systems around you are built.